My name is Mary Caldwell, and I am 68 years old. For my birthday dinner, my own daughter gave me eviction papers. My son-in-law announced it to the whole restaurant, a gift from all of us. The guests laughed, everyone watched, and I became their entertainment. I thanked them, took the papers, and walked out. They thought they had just ruined my life. They had no idea what I'd already done. Stay until the end. You'll see how silence rewrites everything. But before we get into the rest of the story, please hit that like button, subscribe, and tell me in the comments where you are watching from. It truly helps me share stories like this. Let me tell you about my daughter, Rebecca. Rebecca Morgan now, though she'll always be Rebecca Caldwell to me, no matter how much she tries to scrub that name from her history like it's a stain on expensive fabric. She married into the Morgan family 5 years ago, and from that moment forward, she became someone I barely recognized. Success, to Rebecca, was never about character or kindness or the quiet dignity of hard work. No. Success was the size of your house, the brand of your car, the weight of the diamond on your finger. She measured her worth in square footage and stock portfolios, and somehow, along the way, she started measuring mine the same way. And then there's David. David Morgan. My son-in-law. The man who stands beside my daughter like a well-dressed enforcer, always ready to deliver her verdicts with that smug smile plastered across his face. He's the type of man who thinks cruelty is funny as long as it's wrapped in expensive cologne and a tailored suit. He enjoys the spectacle. He loves being the one to twist the knife while everyone watches. He made my humiliation his entertainment, and he did it with the kind of confidence that only comes from never having struggled a day in your life. And me? I'm Mary Caldwell. Just Mary. I've never been flashy. I've never cared about impressing people with things I own or titles I hold. I saw my value in other ways. In the garden I tended every spring, in the meals I cooked from scratch, in the way I kept my home clean and welcoming, in the decades I spent building something real with my own 2 hands. I believed in integrity. I believed in legacy, not the kind you brag about at cocktail parties, but the kind you leave behind in the hearts of people who knew you, in the walls of a home filled with memories. But to them? To Rebecca and David? I was a burden. A problem to be managed. An obstacle standing between them and what they wanted. The house. That's what this has always been about. The family home. The place where I raised Rebecca, where her father and I built our life together before cancer took him 12 years ago. It's a beautiful old colonial on 2 acres of land, with oak trees older than me and a wraparound porch where I've spent countless evenings watching the sunset. Rebecca grew up in that house. She learned to ride her bike on that driveway. She had her first kiss under that oak tree in the backyard. She told me about it, blushing and giggling, when she was 16. Every room holds a memory. Her baby shoes are still in a box in the attic. Her childhood artwork is framed in the hallway. That house is her history, whether she wants to acknowledge it or not. But somewhere along the way, it stopped being home to her. It became real estate. It became an asset. It became something she wanted but couldn't have as long as I was still living in it. And that, I think, is when I stopped being her mother and started being an inconvenience. The turning point came about 8 months ago. I remember the exact moment. It was a Sunday afternoon in March, unseasonably warm, and I was repotting some tomato seedlings on the back porch when Rebecca showed up unannounced. That should have been my first warning. She never just dropped by anymore. Every visit was scheduled, planned, with a start time and an end time like a business meeting. She came through the back gate, her heels sinking into the soft grass, and I remember thinking how out of place she looked in my garden, with her cream-colored pantsuit and her perfectly styled hair. She didn't even say hello. She just stood there, arms crossed, looking at the house like she was appraising it. "Mom," she said, and her voice had that edge to it that tone she uses when she's about to ask for something she's already decided she deserves. David and I have been talking. My stomach dropped. Nothing good ever follows that sentence. We're thinking about expanding, she continued. We need more space. The kids are getting older, and our place in the city just isn't working anymore. We need land. We need privacy. We need. She paused, and then she looked at me. Really looked at me. We need this house. I set down my trowel, dirt still under my fingernails, and I just stared at her. This is my home, Rebecca. I know, she said quickly, like she'd rehearsed this. And we're not asking you to leave. We just think. Maybe it would make more sense if we all lived together. We could renovate the house, add another wing, and you could have your own space. Like a guest suite or something. A guest suite. In my own home. Where I'd be the guest. Or, she added, and this is the part that still makes my blood run cold, there are some really nice senior communities nearby. We looked into it. They have activities, meal plans, everything taken care of. You wouldn't have to worry about maintaining this big house anymore. Wouldn't that be easier? Easier. For who? I told her no. Calmly. Firmly. I told her this was my home, that I wasn't ready to give it up, that I was perfectly capable of taking care of myself and my property. I told her I appreciated her concern but that I needed her to respect my decision. She smiled. That tight, fake smile she gives when she's not getting her way. Okay, Mom. Just think about it. But I saw it in her eyes. She wasn't asking. She was informing me. The decision had already been made in her mind. I was just an obstacle that hadn't been removed yet. The call started after that. Questions about my finances, my health, my ability to manage the house. David would casually mention property values in the area, how much the land alone was worth. Rebecca would sigh about how worried she was, how she didn't think I should be living alone at my age, how she just wanted what was best for me. Every conversation became a subtle assault, chipping away at my autonomy bit by bit. And then, about 2 months ago, I found out the truth. A neighbor mentioned that Rebecca and David had been seen meeting with a real estate developer at the coffee shop in town. They'd been asking about subdivision regulations, about what it would take to split my 2 acres into multiple lots. They were planning my future without me. They were already spending money that wasn't theirs, making plans for land they didn't own. That's when I knew. I wasn't a mother to her anymore. I wasn't even a person. I was just an inconvenience standing between her and her next acquisition. Attention was a currency, and I'd always been the unpaid intern in their empire. The only thing giving me any value to them was this house, and the moment they figured out how to get it without me, I'd be discarded completely. So I made a decision. If they were going to plan in secret, so would I. I started small. I scheduled an appointment with Daniel Reeves, an estate attorney I'd known casually through church for years. I told him I needed to review my affairs, make sure everything was in order. I didn't mention Rebecca. I didn't mention the eviction they were clearly planning. I just said I wanted to be smart about my future. Daniel is a good man. Patient. Thorough. He asked me questions about my assets, my wishes, my concerns. And when I finally told him what was happening, about Rebecca's pressure, about the real estate developer, about the feeling that my own daughter was circling me like a vulture, he didn't act surprised. He just nodded slowly and said, "Mary, we need to protect you." We spent weeks reviewing everything. The house deed, the property boundaries, the legal options available to me. And that's when Daniel showed me something I'd completely forgotten about. Years ago, when my husband Tom was still alive, we'd worked with a different attorney to set up some basic estate planning. Nothing fancy, just the usual documents. But buried in those old files was a provision we'd discussed but never finalized, the option to place the property into an irrevocable land trust. Tom and I had talked about it as a way to protect the land from development, to keep it in the family but preserve its character. We'd never moved forward with it because, at the time, Rebecca was young and we trusted that she'd respect our wishes. We never imagined she'd become the threat we were trying to protect against. Daniel looked at me across his desk, his reading glasses perched on his nose, and he said, "Mary, if you activate this trust now, the property becomes untouchable. You retain a life estate, which means you can live here for the rest of your life. No one can evict you. No one can force you to sell. And when you pass, the property goes to the designated beneficiary of the trust, which you can name. It removes the property from your estate entirely." I felt something shift in my chest. Hope, maybe. Or power. The kind of power I hadn't felt in months. "Can she challenge it?" I asked. "She can try," Daniel said. "But if we execute this correctly, if we document everything properly, there's no legal grounds for her to overturn it. The property will no longer be yours to give away. It'll belong to the trust." "How long will it take?" "If we move quickly?" 3 weeks. I didn't hesitate. "Do it." For 3 weeks, I lived in a strange state of suspended tension. I went through the motions of my normal life, tending my garden, attending my book club, having my weekly phone calls with Rebecca where she'd ask me leading questions about my plans and I'd give her nothing. But inside, I was electric with purpose. Every document I signed, every meeting with Daniel, every notarized page felt like an act of rebellion. I was taking back control of my life, one legal form at a time. Rebecca had no idea. David had no idea. They thought they were the ones orchestrating everything, moving the pieces on the board while I sat helpless in my house, waiting to be removed. They had no idea I'd already checkmated them. The final document came through on a Tuesday afternoon. Daniel called me to his office, and I sat across from him as he slid the papers across his desk. Official. Stamped. Signed by a judge. The property at 428 Maple Grove Lane was now held in the Caldwell Family Land Trust, with Mary Elizabeth Caldwell as the life estate holder and the Nature Conservancy named as the remainder beneficiary. When I die, the land doesn't go to Rebecca. It goes to conservation. It can never be subdivided. It can never be developed. It will remain exactly as Tom and I intended, a piece of protected land, wild and beautiful, forever. I held that document in my hands and I cried. Not sad tears. Angry tears. Relieved tears. The kind of tears that come when you realize you've saved yourself from people who were supposed to protect you. Daniel put his hand on mine. "You did the right thing, Mary." "I wish I didn't have to," I said. 2 days later, Rebecca called. She was unusually cheerful, her voice bright with fake enthusiasm. "Mom. David and I want to take you out for your birthday. Somewhere nice. Our treat." My birthday was still a week away, but I knew what this was. This was the performance. This was the grand finale they'd been planning. "That sounds lovely," I said, matching her false sweetness with my own. "Great. I'll make a reservation at the Riverside. Saturday at 7. Where's something nice?" "The Riverside. Of course. The most expensive restaurant in town, the place where the wealthy go to be seen." They weren't taking me to dinner. They were taking me to a stage. I spent that week preparing. I bought a new dress, navy blue, elegant, dignified. I had my hair done. I even wore the pearls Tom gave me on our 20th anniversary. If I was going to be humiliated, I was going to look them in the eye while it happened. But I also prepared in another way. I went back to Daniel's office and I asked him for a copy of the trust documents. Not the full file, just the essential pages. The ones showing the judge's signature, the official stamp, the date of execution. I put them in a manila folder, the same neutral tan color as legal documents everywhere. And I brought it with me. Saturday came. I drove myself to the riverside, my hand steady on the wheel. I arrived exactly on time, and the hostess led me through the restaurant to a private dining room in the back. Of course they'd reserved a private room. They wanted an audience, but a controlled one. Rebecca's friends. David's business associates. People who would witness my humiliation and spread the story. There were about 15 people there when I arrived. I recognized some of them, Rebecca's college friend Jennifer, David's brother Marcus and his wife. Others were strangers to me, wealthy-looking people in expensive clothes who stopped their conversations to watch me enter. Rebecca rushed over, all smiles and air kisses. "Mom. You look beautiful. Come, sit here." She guided me to a chair at the head of the table, positioned perfectly so everyone could see me. The dinner started normally enough. Appetizers were served. Wine was poured. Conversations hummed around me, polite and meaningless. I sat quietly, ate my salad, and waited. I knew it was coming. I could feel it in the air, in the way Rebecca kept glancing at David, in the way David kept checking his watch. It came with the main course. David stood up, his wine glass in hand, and the room fell silent. "I'd like to propose a toast," he announced, his voice carrying that jovial tone that men like him use when they're about to be cruel. "To Mary. Happy birthday. 68 years of life, love, and family." Everyone raised their glasses. I raised mine. "And," David continued, his smile widening, "we have a gift for you." Rebecca stood up too, pulling a large manila envelope from her designer bag. She walked over to me, her heels clicking on the hardwood floor, and she placed the envelope in front of me with a flourish. "Open it, Mom," she said sweetly. The room was watching. All eyes on me. This was the moment they'd orchestrated, the scene they'd staged. I could feel the anticipation, the way people lean forward when they sense something dramatic is about to happen. I opened the envelope slowly. Inside were papers. Legal papers. A notice of eviction. A property claim form. A letter from a law firm I'd never heard of, stating that Rebecca Morgan had legal grounds to assume ownership of 428 Maple Grove Lane due to concerns about the current occupant's ability to maintain the property and mental fitness to make sound decisions regarding her welfare. Mental fitness. They were claiming I was incompetent. The room was silent, waiting for my reaction. Waiting for tears, for anger, for me to fall apart so they could console me, pity me, watch me break. I looked up at Rebecca. She was smiling, but there was something else in her eyes. Nervousness. She was waiting to see if this would work, if I'd crumble or fight back. I looked at David. He was practically glowing with satisfaction. And then I did something they never expected. I smiled. "Thank you," I said quietly. "This is very thoughtful." Rebecca blinked. "What?" I said thank you. I folded the papers carefully and put them back in the envelope. "I appreciate the effort you went to. The legal firm. The documentation. This must have cost you quite a bit." David's smile faltered. "Mary, I don't think you understand." "Oh, I understand perfectly," I said, and my voice was steady, calm, almost pleasant. "You're trying to take my home. You've decided I'm too old, too incompetent to live in the house where I raised your wife. You've made this decision without me, and now you're announcing it to a room full of strangers as if it's a gift." The room was frozen. No one touched their food. No one sipped their wine. Rebecca's face went pale. "Mom, it's not like that. We're worried about you." The house is too much for you to handle alone. Is it? I reached into my own bag and pulled out my manila folder. I set it on the table beside their envelope. Because I seemed to be handling it just fine. I opened the folder. The documents inside were clearly visible: the trust agreement, the judge's signature, the official seal. You see, I continued, and now there was steel in my voice, steel and anger and pain that I'd been holding back for months, while you were planning my eviction, while you were meeting with real estate developers and lawyers and plotting how to steal my home, I was doing something too. I was protecting myself. From you. Rebecca grabbed the folder, her hands shaking. She started reading, her eyes scanning the pages faster and faster. I watched her face change as she understood what she was looking at. Confusion. Disbelief. Realization. Horror. This is... She started. This is dated 3 weeks ago. Yes, I said. 3 weeks ago, I placed the property into an irrevocable land trust. I retain a life estate, which means I can live there until I die. And when I die, the property doesn't go to you, Rebecca. It goes to the Nature Conservancy. The land will be protected. It can never be subdivided, never developed, never sold. It's untouchable. David grabbed the papers from Rebecca. You can't do this. I already did, I said calmly. It's done. Signed. Sealed. Legal. Your eviction papers? I tapped their envelope. They're worthless. You can't evict me from a property I don't legally own. And you can't claim it because it's no longer part of my estate. The room was dead silent. I could hear people breathing. Rebecca's phone rang. The sound was jarring in the quiet room. She looked at the screen, and I saw her face go even paler. It's Jeffrey Morris. He's our attorney. Answer it, David said through gritted teeth. Rebecca answered, putting the phone to her ear. Hello? She listened, and I watched her face crumble. But she can't, that's not, are you sure? More listening. Her eyes filled with tears, but not the kind of tears you cry for sadness. These were tears of rage, of frustration, of losing something you thought you'd already won. Fine. Yes. We'll discuss it later. She hung up. What did he say? David demanded. Rebecca looked at me, and for just a moment, I saw her as she used to be. My little girl. The child who used to crawl into my lap when she had nightmares, who trusted me to fix everything. But that child was gone. The woman standing in front of me was a stranger. He said she's right, Rebecca whispered. The trust is legal. There's nothing we can do. The property it's gone. David slammed his hand on the table, making the glasses rattle. This is insane. You're her daughter. You have rights. Actually, I said, standing up slowly, and every eye in the room was on me, she doesn't. I had rights. The right to live in my own home. The right to make my own decisions. The right to be treated with respect by my own child. And you tried to take all of that away from me. So yes, David. I protected myself. I made sure that no matter what you tried, no matter what papers you served me, I would have a home. I would have safety. I would have peace. I picked up my folder and my purse. You can keep those eviction papers. Frame them if you want. They're evidence of who you became. But they mean nothing now. I looked at Rebecca one more time. I loved you. I loved you so much that I built a life around you, sacrificed for you, gave you everything I had. And you repaid me by trying to make me homeless on my birthday. So here's my gift to you, Rebecca, consequences. You wanted the house? You can never have it. You wanted me out? I'm leaving right now. But not because you told me to. Because I choose to. I walked toward the door, my head high, my spine straight. Behind me, I could hear Rebecca crying, David arguing, the murmur of shocked guests. But I didn't look back. I walked through the restaurant, past the other diners who looked up curiously as I passed, past the hostess at the front, out into the parking lot where the evening air was cool and clean. I got in my car, set my folder on the passenger seat, and I sat there for a moment, my hands on the steering wheel. And then I laughed. A real laugh, the kind that comes from your belly, the kind that's been trapped inside you for so long it hurts coming out. I laughed until tears ran down my face, until my ribs ached, until I couldn't breathe. I drove home. To my home. The home they'd tried to steal. I pulled into the driveway, looked at the oak tree silhouetted against the darkening sky, and I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Safe. I went inside, made myself a cup of tea, and sat on the back porch. My phone buzzed. A text from Rebecca, "Mom, please call me. We need to talk about this." I deleted it. Another text, from David, "You're making a huge mistake. We were trying to help you." I deleted that too. Then a text from Daniel Reeves, "I heard from Jeffrey Morris. He confirmed everything is in order. Congratulations, Mary. You're free." I saved that one. Over the next few days, the calls kept coming. Rebecca, crying and begging. David, threatening and angry. Their friends, trying to mediate. I didn't answer any of them. I'd said everything I needed to say. Silence wasn't weakness. Silence was my answer. A week later, I received one final message. It was from Rebecca, and it was different from the others. "Mom, I don't understand why you did this. That house is my inheritance. You've taken everything from me." I stared at that message for a long time. And finally, I replied. "I didn't take anything from you, Rebecca. I protected something from you. There's a difference. You wanted an inheritance. I wanted a home. You got what you deserved. So did I." I never heard from her again. Now, 3 months later, I sit in my garden and I tend my tomatoes. I watch the sunset from my porch. I sleep in my own bed, in my own house, on my own land. I am 68 years old, and I am free. The eviction papers are in a drawer in my desk. I keep them, not as a wound, but as evidence. Evidence of what was. Proof of what changed. They thought they could write me out of my own story. They thought silence meant surrender. They were wrong. Silence was my strategy. Silence was my power. While they talked and planned and schemed, I acted. While they announced their intentions to a room full of strangers, I secured my future in a lawyer's office with a judge's signature. They wanted to make me a footnote in their success story. Instead, they became the lesson I'll never forget. Sometimes the people who are supposed to love you become the people you most need to protect yourself from. My daughter gave me eviction papers for my birthday. I gave myself freedom. And that is a gift that will last the rest of my life. They wrote me out of their story, but I became the footnote they'll never erase. Before you go, don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more real stories like this one and click on the image showing on your screen to watch another real story. Trust me, it's more crazier and heartwarming than you can ever imagine. See you in the next story.